All set? Okay. It is now 6 o'clock on October 2nd. The Capital Improvements Program CIP Committee meeting on Wednesday, again, October 2nd, 2024 at 6 o'clock on the dot. The agenda, can I get, before I do that, let me just say that members that are present is Karen Arenberg, citizen, Roger Sample, planning board, Pat O'Brien, citizen, and Frank Rich, citizen, chair. Is anybody else, do we know if anybody else is coming?
So both Andrew Morse and Beth Varney have let me know they're not available for tonight.
Okay, both Andy
Yep.
Morse and Beth Varney are not available for tonight's meeting, but we do have a quorum, so we will continue. Can I get a motion for the agenda?
So moved.
Somebody,
Is it? Yeah, switch in the back.
I'll second that.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Committee to meet and to finalize the plan. So, no further ado. Why don't we get right to it? Jessica, if you would lead us through this on what might be new and exciting. I apologize for not being here the last couple of weeks, but as I can see, Jessica kept me informed. We made some pretty good headway. So where are we at, Jessica?
We did. So as of okay, as of last meeting, there were 4 items that I needed to check up on. 2 of them were from the fire department. One was engine 3. I discussed that with the fire chief and he was okay with pushing that out to 2031. So that kind of takes it off of this plan and helps numbers a bit. And I did talk to him about the ladder truck. The ladder truck at the last meeting, we had split up the cost into 2 years instead of the 1.9 coming out of the 1 year, because that was tough to fit that in. So we've split that up into 2 years and he's aware of that.
Okay.
The next thing was the road construction. So back, not last year, but it was the year before, when Scott Kinman was here. And he had talked about sort of increasing that line. And so the cap on that line, the last discussion with him was 1.5. So I went back onto the CIP plan, and so now it's at 1.5 all across the board.
Okay.
And then the other issue was in 2030, there's a new body worn camera program on for the police department. So in 2030, it's at a negative 28,000. And we had discussed this prior to the chief coming. And he was okay with that being in a negative because he's going to try to squeeze that into his operating budget. He actually was very grateful that we could get the $200,000 covered and that he would only have to cover 28,000 6 years from now.
Okay.
So he was fine with that.
And he was okay with it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So those were the 4 items that I needed to double check on, and it looks pretty good.
And all of the committee members were satisfied with what we have done? Was there?
Up to prior to those 4 items. So now I'm cluing everybody in to that follow-up.
So we still have to discuss those 4 items.
Yep, I highlighted them on the plan, just so that you guys could see the changes from last meeting. Here we are. Oh, and so nope, let's start at the beginning. That's the cover sheet. All right, so here's where we split split the cost of the ladder truck. Over here was where the $900,000 for engine 3 originally was. So I just put a place marker there for a visual sake. So by doing those changes, this was at a negative 361,000. So by removing the engine 3, they're now in the green, 539,000.
Okay,
So that's that. Then, let's see. Yeah, so up over here, this is just the 1.5 across the board. The other change is down here. This right here shows the negative 28,000. This up over here, this actually wasn't on the plan when we met last. This was a second request from the police department that I've evidently overlooked at the last go around when I was updating the plan. So I've added this on here. He did talk about it when he came to present. It just wasn't on the plan. So I did add this in here. He's, concerned that he only has $196 put aside in a building repair fund, and he's looking at, potential, septic replacement, HVAC, and to just have some money so that he has some, general maintenance items. Whatever it be, lighting or whatever whatever the issues are that they have. So he's not too sure, but there's, in some of these years over here, he'll probably need to spend some of that money for a new septic system. Just, he wasn't sure when. So I didn't put a year to be spent.
okay. So, because you did.
'Cause he's not
This is
really-
also inclusive of. Oh, okay, so this is under
This
police
is the police.
building expansion,
Yep.
but this has nothing to do with the cameras.
It does not. No, the cameras are this section right down over here. This set of numbers down here is the cameras. So he has two items.
So how does the committee feel about this building, police building expansion for general maintenance, things of that nature that I guess would not be considered. He's looking for the cost of the projects to be around $100,000 from what I can see here. How does the committee feel about it? Input, Karen?
Well, I think it's prudent to set aside some money to make sure that he can maintain his building. As to the amount, I don't know.
Did he say what kind of an expansion he was talking about?
I'm sorry, Pat. I'm sorry, Roger, what?
Did he say what kind of an expansion that they were?
I think when he was in here, didn't he say he felt that there was going to be septic system issues, HVAC issues, going forward, that he just wanted to be prepared and not be an emergency state, okay? And I thought I heard him say some plumbing issues, but I do remember septic and I do remember HVAC. Pat?
I guess my first point would be, do we know the wording of PD1, police building expansion, CRF, and its purpose? I do believe that this is going to require the establishment of a new capital reserve fund. The majority of the other capital reserve funds are building, if you scroll down, building capital reserve fund. It doesn't usually say expansion. So I'm concerned about the purpose of the fund. And if we add money to it, will we then not be able to take money out of it because it doesn't fit the purpose?
Well, it does say expansion.
Right, and that's my concern is what is in the article. Or what is in the description of the CRF. And it doesn't really matter today. I mean, we could still vote or not vote, but I guess we could recommend that we reserve this money, but just establish a new capital reserve for the upkeep and maintenance of the police department. Make it a little bit more broad rather than police building expansion, because I
Yep.
feel like there's some debate.
You think we should change the word?
I don't know if you can change the word.
I have a question. Where did the word expansion come from?
It's a prior capital reserve fund that was put aside when the police department was, when they
Okay.
expanded the police department. And so that $196 is just what was left over.
Yeah,
Um,
because when in his, in the police chief's request, he doesn't call it that.
Right.
But respectfully, if it was there before, then we have to work with
Yeah,
that. He
and-
calls it maintenance.
Pat has a really good point. You guys could still move forward and, you know, I can
Right.
update the
Oh,
plan.
it just, in parentheses, it does say septic, HVAC.
Yeah, I put
General
that, I
upkeep.
put that in there.
Just
Yeah.
now?
Yep. Well, not just today. but-
Not today,
Yeah.
but I do remember him
Yeah.
saying those things. So at least it identifies.
You wait down the road here, but it seems like an awful lot of money for those two items.
So the,
I mean,
his
unfortunately,
paperwork, right.
The money. would be there anyway.
He listed his paperwork at, so the HVAC and the septic system, one was 65 and one was 35. So there's the 100,000.
This is the AC was 65. End of it, the AC, because the septic system wouldn't be 65.
No, he has, his total is 65. Septic 30, HVAC 35, at least in the paper I'm looking at. Maybe it was up, I don't know.
I might also suggest, because the body worn camera program is not an existing CRF, that maybe that becomes, so like the fire department has a fire equipment capital reserve fund. Perhaps the PD pursues something similar, so that way they're not so locked into that explicit purpose. And that also kind of streamlines our accounts as well, because if we start having like, let's just say they go down the road of tasers, right? Now, all of a sudden, we need to have a taser capital reserve fund. I feel like maybe a police equipment capital reserve fund, because this body worn camera program is going to prompt the need for the establishment of a CRF, because there isn't one in existence.
To make it more general.
To make it more general, and then just like every other,
Just
like every other program, right? This is just a subsection of that CRF. I just feel like that's the smarter thing to do, because if now all of a sudden he gets a grant for the body worn cameras, right? And we establish a capital reserve fund for body worn cameras, now we're gonna have $25,000 in an account. If we get a grant for it, now we're gonna have to go back to vote to remove that money, for it to go to the general fund, and then for it to go into another capital reserve fund or whatever. I feel like we'd be thinking ahead if we made it more of like a police equipment capital reserve fund and then added body worn cameras as a line item
the line.
in that CRF.
Be true, you would add a line item for HVAC, for example. Or
Um,
is that different because it's more,
generalized,
well, it's building, I mean, it's
Right.
not equipment.
yeah.
HVAC or septic,
The-
it's not equipment.
I definitely think that, and again, this is just having seen some of this play out in years past. I think it would be prudent to today or potentially this year, put on the warrant to dissolve the police building expansion, take that 196, put it in the general fund, establish a police building maintenance capital reserve fund. establish a police equipment capital reserve fund. And then these items and justifications would be in line items underneath. It would have to happen anyway, maybe not with the police building expansion, perhaps the wording is in there and we can just use it. But I would highly recommend we maybe check in with the trustees of trust funds, I believe,
Yeah, I can check with Laura.
oversee that. But the body worn cameras would require the establishment of a new CRF.
Right, okay, so depending on the language of the building expansion, I may create a new one and have, request that to be dissolved if what they request fits. Leave it the way it is.
Sure,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay,
Roger, you okay with that?
Uh,
Is 20 the right number?
I think that's a little high.
and it can be lower. I think that might have been, that was his request, but
It
he
was
said,
his request.
he said it could be 5,000.
let's meet them in the middle.
So I put in, the reason why I put in 20, I put in 20 because it didn't budge the numbers in the bottom. It,
Well, what if you
it
took the-
didn't, but so to be able to get, what if the HVAC and the septic needs to be done sooner? Or both at the same time?
Well,
Cause then we come back and each year you're changing the numbers,
Wouldn't we, the number that he estimated was 65,000. Why wouldn't we take the 6 years there and go 10,000, 10,002 or something like that?
So you want to go to?
So at
10
the end of 6
You want to
years,
go to 10,000?
Yeah, that way at the end of 10 years, he would have that 65,000, he wouldn't have 100,000, he'd have 65,000, which is more in line with what the numbers he came with,
So he gave me 65,000 for the septic system.
That's too much.
35,000 is for the HVAC replacement.
He needs 65,000 per septic system.
That's what he gave me.
He did explain that it's a complicated system.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
not
why.
close to the PD. I don't know where it is.
Has something to do with drugs or something? Maybe that it's just under, think that.
Not my profession. I'm not going to speak to it.
All right. Can I get the committee to agree that we're going to go to 10,000 for each year? Is everybody okay with that? Let's put it at 10.
Okay.
We want to deal with on the last year here, 2030, the negative 28 grand. Is that a negative? Or is
Yeah,
that a positive?
That's a negative.
So that's the line item that we were discussing that he said he was going to try to supplement that deficit with budget.
I know he's going to supplement it, but he's got no guarantee that he's going to be able to do it. What does everybody think about that? I mean, it's not going to be, I mean, if we added the 28 grand, or let's even say 30 grand, and I think we've made a decision that we don't want it to say cameras any longer. Did I hear that correctly? That we,
Wanted to say, what,
Mhm.
I don't know, can we do that? Just change it?
I have to reformat that area.
Yeah, I would leave the body worn camera piece in there, but
Yeah, I
just
just- Different.
when we suggest the creation of the CRF, suggest it with the purpose of police equipment
right,
capital reserve
With it.
versus, and then still have this in here. It's still black and white. It's still
Right.
transparent. It's just,
So should we have a negative number there, or should we do something about it? How does everybody feel about that? Roger, what do you think?
Do we ever submit a plan with a negative number? Has that
Karen, I'm
happened?
sorry, go ahead.
Do we ever submit a plan with a negative number? Do we ever submit a
We-
plan with a negative number? or
we
do
haven't.
provide a-
We've
Okay,
been doing it since 2000.
That's why I'm
17,
bringing it
no.
up, because I don't ever remember us showing a negative number. Okay?
We should fix
It's certainly way out. It's gonna give him plenty of time to see if he can get a grant and whatnot, because he's really not looking for it until 2030. So
So what do we-
my thought process, and it's just, I'd rather see a positive number. It's not going to affect the, what we're doing here in terms of, dollars. 5 years from now, God only knows what the assessed value of this town is going to be.
So just so I'm clear, on this, he's not looking for these cameras for 5 years?
I'm sorry?
He's not looking to get these cameras for 5 years? Or do they have?
That's the way I
something-
read this.
Do they have something now that they're using?
Mhm.
Oh, they do.
They have radios now, right?
They have what?
They have radios. They're working on getting the body worn cameras
The body
now.
cameras.
This
don't
is,
have body
this is
cameras
when
now.
they time out and they need to get new ones.
So, okay, so they have them now.
They're getting them. I don't believe they have them yet.
So in 5 years, those are obsolete. Replace them.
That's how I understood it.
This
So
is
did
to
you
re-
get a grant?
This
from
is to
rehab?
replace them. This is to replace the body cameras
In
in
5 years.
5 years, right? Which hopefully he might be able to get a grant. And if we have it down there, Les Pat is recommending as a equipment, then he's pretty well funded for some other stuff. I mean, I'm okay about leaving it negative, but we've never done that before.
Well, it wouldn't
Not,
hurt to-
not that we don't have to, we can change precedent, you know?
well, we took 10,000 off the other number. Maybe if we put 5,000 on. At least there's a positive number, right?
You mean, add 5,000 to each year?
Yeah.
Yeah? We can do it that way.
Okay,
Is it $5,000 or is it six grand?
it'd be
30.
5. If
30?
you're trying to come up with 30. That's that. Let's see what our number looks like down here. Which I don't think it really budged anything.
Yeah, it doesn't
Still
do,
the same.
no.
So
Okay,
that fixes that and we're still at the same number.
all right. So now let's go up to the big, if everybody's okay with that, I'm gonna move back up to the big enchiladas.
Now, let me get rid of this yellow stuff. That. Okay, so that was the fire truck. We can get rid of
Okay,
that.
so can somebody give me some commentary on, how we came to this decision? What was the thought process? Was to try to balance the number? Is that what it, in terms of, the big hit? Is that what we were trying to
Pretty
do?
much. Yeah.
Okay, what's the? The 2029, there's 355,000 at the breathing, for the breathing apparatuses.
Yep.
12-year plan. And truck. So what was the thought process here, guys? What do we, what do, you know, I wasn't here for, or was that something that we need to discuss? We need to discuss that? Jessica?
I don't think so. It was just the engine 3 and the ladder truck, I think were the two outstanding issues for the fire department.
And he said
Unless anybody has anything new, but those were the two. And he was okay with that.
so he's pushed out the other fire truck to 2031, so that's not
Yeah.
something, it's just something that we'll have to address next year when it comes to it.
Right, and we did talk about this.
Did he get some actual numbers of what, in other words, is he, has he given any did he give any consideration to inflation? You know, being out to 2028 and 29
I believe
for
so.
the truck?
And he did give me some new updated numbers, for some of the existing equipment. The column, whether it's the gross capital cost, I did increase some of those as well. For numbers that he provided. Yeah, so that's like a pretty, that's up to date.
That's up to date.
Yeah.
So he's figuring $1 million, $2 million bucks. Right? Am I
Yep.
reading that right?
For the ladder truck.
For the ladder truck.
Yes, and we did talk about that a little bit. I mean, this has been talk for some time now, the ladder truck. So he's trying to find some different avenues, maybe looking at another used truck that's better, better than the last used one that they had purchased. And then if the schedule includes 1.9 million and engine 3 fails prior to 31, there may be some, wiggle room for him to be able to move forward with the purchase of engine 3 if it becomes an emergency. And they get a used ladder truck instead of buying a new one.
Yep. Well. As Pat has mentioned, the issue is what the need, what availability there will be in terms of a single axle truck versus a double axle truck. And a lot of these cities have double axle trucks that are available, but I have no idea about single axle and, in good condition. So, yeah, certainly good used would be great, but it's gonna be
Karen's,
So does it matter? So when you add 995 and 995, you get 1990. It doesn't match what's on the left? Does it have to?
Oh, did I not add right?
Well, I don't know how exact we have to be on this. I mean, 1990, 2 million is probably closer to reality anyway. Maybe we make the number on the left 1990.
Oh, I see. That should have been
950.
50.
Well, whatever. I mean, it
So-
should be matched,
It
right?
should, correct. Got ahead of myself. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome. my one contribution.
So in order to, I mean, if we were to buy a brand new truck, the minute we put the minute we make a commitment, it's gonna be 2 years plus before we see that truck. Does that make a difference on how we look at this? And we have to think about what would be the deposit for that truck? Because certainly the manufacturer would want a substantial deposit.
So if we need it in 28, it has to be bought in 26? Is that kind of what?
You'd have to, if you wanted it in
Order it.
if you wanted it in 28, you'd have to order it in 26. Okay, based on information that I have from the Wolfboro Fire Department that just got theirs and other fire departments, it takes a while. How long did it take, Pat, to get the new truck that we've got now?
Actually, 2.5 years,
I'm sorry?
approximately 2.5 years, and it's been delayed 3 months.
Did Wolfboro give any hint as to how much they had to put it down?
You know, I don't know. I honestly don't, but I think it was sizable, you know? And then they had a fight over it because the manufacturer wanted more money, said they couldn't build it for it. They negotiated another price. I don't really know the outcome, the total outcome, but it wasn't pretty.
It's important to note that that particular situation did happen in the heat of COVID, and the record-breaking inflation. So when all of these proposals were made, that topic did come up, and there was no indication that that has ever happened with the particular manufacturer that the fire department was suggesting, from my memory. Also, there is generally not a requirement for a down deposit or down payment. However, there typically is a fairly sizable savings if you do prepay.
Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure they could do it without a down payment because it seems like there's somebody else that would buy it if you went, said, no, change that mind.
In, what's the amount, how much money do we have in 2026 in terms of reserve? What, it's not down, okay. How much is there? 1,000,004?
Yep,
1,000,004. So they would have enough money for a deposit in the fund. So I guess my concern is muted because they have enough money in terms of reserve sitting there so that they could actually create the deposit, you know, with money that they have in reserve. Okay, good. Well, what happens if can you go down to the bottom line in terms of what the impact is? All the way down, all the way down. So in 2026, it's a dollar nine,
Yep, it's $1.09.
$1.09. In 2027, it's $1.09.
Yep.
In 2028, it's a $1.10. 96982.
Yep.
96, okay. All right. Well, is everybody comfortable about leaving it out there? Any concerns, Pat?
I'm not going to speak to the issue outside of my role here on the
I
board.
I don't blame you. Okay. Roger, what do you think?
Well,
Can we go back up, Jessica, to the?
Yep.
Oop. Come back down a little bit to where the,
Oh, you want to see the fire
yeah,
department?
right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. What alternative do we have?
I'm sorry, Karen.
What alternative do we have? What would we do differently if we didn't?
Well, certainly one of the alternatives, the way I see it, is that fire department and the Board of Selectmen are lucky enough to find a used truck that they feel comfortable with. You know, that is significantly less money and saves us a ton of dollars.
So if that happened,
That's only one alternative.
no, but if that happened, next year, wouldn't we adjust it to whatever the actual turned out to be?
If all of a sudden that comes out, then we have a 1,000,008 something or 1,000,009 to play with, okay? But it depends on how long we think that truck will last, you know?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
and that's always a crapshoot. You never know. You're buying a used piece of equipment and you hope for the best. We have lucked out with this particular ladder truck, but it's beginning to, from what the fire department says, it's beginning to see its day. The other thing I think that the committee has to give consideration to, it's not the best consideration, is that there is a ladder truck in Wolfboro, but it's not really conducive for what the fire department would like to see, because they'd like the ladder truck to be the first in versus the other trucks. And that isn't always the case. There are other ladder trucks in the general area if we were to have a very serious situation, but we do have a lot of big homes on the lake that if, God forbid, they went up, they would require a good sized ladder, 100-foot ladder being in it, if you're gonna try to preserve it or save it, I don't know.
power on a pump truck. I mean, look how far a pump truck will go. Put your tower on the end of that, then you can put your man on the roof. Those are probably a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Put a tank on it. I mean, I think you said that the ladder truck has other stuff on it, does it, Pat? Equipment or something?
All right, why don't we come back to this, Jessica? Do we have any other ones that we have to look at? Or is it just this one?
It's just that one. I mean,
Just-
and, keeping in mind that the chief's aware that the chief's aware of the schedule that we've, that the committee's come up with. So,
Okay,
just in the back of your mind, he was okay with that.
he was okay with it.
Yep. So if that eases your mind at all in your decision as to what you want to do with that.
Well, I mean, the good news is from at least from my standpoint is it's not tomorrow. We've got some time to work on this. And it does balance it does balance out the years.
It does, and like you pointed out in these earlier.
I mean,
years-
what I like about this is we got 1.4 million there.
Yeah,
That if we had to order it, if the board and of course the citizens have to agree to it too, I mean, doesn't this become a warrant article? I would think so. No?
I think it's voted on every other year.
Does it become a warrant article?
right, the funds that get put into the capital reserve is what they vote on. So they vote on, they're voting on, these green
So
deposit
this
numbers.
coming year, we're
Yeah.
voting on what?
Let's see, that's 300,000.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'd be voting on that every year to increase the reserve.
Yeah, I mean, it has different amounts, but yeah, that's what you're doing
Right.
every year.
Okay. All right.
How come it seems as though the fire truck gets voted down every year, if that's the case? Seems like every time they put the ladder truck up, it gets voted down. So seems like two different stories. One is all we're voting on is the contribution.
In my personal opinion, the recommendations from the respective boards and commissions at the bottom of the warrant article play a large factor.
What?
Oh. He said the recommendations that you read on the bottom of the warrant
Yeah,
play a big factor in how people vote. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, if I
Oh.
said that incorrectly.
That's accurate.
You turn your microphone on? Yeah. Yes, I believe that's what he just
Well,
said.
that's what Pat just said.
I think Pat's trying to really refrain from diving into.
I'll be
A different
honest,
seat.
I eat, sleep and breathe this stuff daily. So I have a lot of information, but I'm not in the position to divulge it at the moment. So
Yes, understand.
Okay.
Is this, so this is my
Yes, Karen.
education. Is it typically, not supported by our elected constituents, our elected
the
people?
voters.
No. No, based on what Pat said, the recommendations of the committee, they must say no. If people are voting no, we don't want it.
long story short, it's seemingly a little bit of a technicality in 2024 when that was put on the ballot. The previous time it was on the ballot was 2018. And that year we asked for 2 trucks to be lease purchased. So
I just wondered why there isn't support for it by the elected officials or the people who are offering their opinion on the warrant. I don't know the answer.
Well, the only one that have offering an opinion is the selectmen of the budget committee, right?
Right.
It's,
the original question was, why did the townspeople vote it down? And I just personal opinion feel that the vast majority of voters rely very heavily on those numbers. And it is also my understanding that due to a technicality last year, those numbers may not have been accurate.
Okay.
what I don't understand is when the voters go down and they scribble on the paper, they have no idea what the numbers are. Other than I mean, if you're gonna buy a fire truck, then the numbers would be, okay, will you buy the fire truck for, what was it, $16 million or whatever the number it is? So I'm just confused. I mean, what are we doing here? We're trying to put in our yearly contribution, right? Is that what we're doing?
Mhm.
And then the voters will vote on that? Voters don't vote on this stuff that we do.
No,
No.
no.
So we're just plugging in numbers, so the bottom number stays as close to a buck as we can get it. So if we put in money for the fire truck, we put in money for the fire. truck. And if the number is, bounces off a buck way more than we want, then we've got to make an adjustment. Am I wrong? No. I mean, haven't we been putting money away for this truck all along? And we must, because we got money, so it must have come from somewhere.
So if we read this right, they have 1,000,007 at the end of 2024. It might be seven something, again, 1,000,007 something something. Is that right? Is that how I read this?
Where are you at, Karen? I'm sorry.
Right next to. Keep
Next
going.
one over to the left.
So you keep going to the left a little bit, right up. Not that one.
Okay, what number are you looking at? What are you referring
The
to?
number right next to the 7 million. Right there,
That's the total of the capital reserve funds. But
that they'll have at the end of 2024. Is that right?
that includes,
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so then we buy a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff in the red in the next year, add 300, and then they'll have 1,000,001. We buy stuff in the next year, we add 400, and then they'll have 1,000,004. That's how this worksheet works, right?
yep,
Okay. So what's the question?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
What,
What are we?
are we uncomfortable with this? Right now?
Well. The interesting part about it, okay, is let's, how do I say this?
You're among friends.
Let me, let's say that the truck was ordered in 26.
You want me to say?
I'm sorry, can you go back to, bring it back down so I can? Where the heck is it? Okay, 28, 20. So you ordered in 26. If it was ordered in 26. But what this is suggesting is we would have the money if you ordered it in 27 and it was delivered in 29. Am I saying that right? But if I'm right about the 2 years to get it,
Or maybe 2.5, right?
but there's that $900,000. Is it 900 or 950? 950.
950.
Okay, may not get used. Because we probably have given a deposit And we won't have to finalize giving out the rest of the money until we get delivery.
So are you suggesting we take the 950 out of 2029 off? Because we already have reserves of 1.4?
It would be in the
I
red.
don't know what I'm
If we
suggesting.
do
I'm just
950.
bringing that up. And that doesn't really make a difference. I don't even know if this even makes a difference. Having it split or having it in 1 year. I mean, having it in 1 year just increases the that particular year's trying to keep it at a buck.
Right.
Well, if the truck's gonna get here in 28, what's the point of the money getting here in 29?
Yeah.
I mean, that money in 29, is it necessary or is the truck already funded in 28? If so, why is that number even there? If the truck is funded in 28? Or is the fire chief thinking more, looking at getting the truck for 29? Like you say, ordering it in 27 for 29. I mean, that 1,700,000 there, is that all of the fire department's expenses, or is that 1,700,000 just that ladder truck?
No, it's what they have in reserve for anything they would need. It's
That's
not
all
just,
this stuff.
I believe so. That's how I read it. Is that correct? When they have 1,700,000 at the end of the year, they can spend it on,
So this 1,700,000 is what's currently in the capital reserve.
right, for anything.
Yeah, that's for all this stuff.
So they don't have 1,700,000 to buy the fire department.
No,
Is there a number? There is a number, right, for the money that they have towards that truck, isn't? I thought it was like 895,000 or something. I mean,
Different, that's
Pat, can you tell me is
a different truck. That's online, whatever it is.
has engine two been ordered?
so I can speak to that. They were gonna purchase that. That was on the schedule for last year.
Right.
And that didn't get paid yet. That's gonna come out of this year. So that's why that got stuck on 2025.
I'm
It
sorry.
didn't get paid for yet. It's gonna get paid for this, in 2025. It'll get paid for. It was supposed to be paid for this year in 24.
Okay, but we have not received it yet.
No,
Okay.
so
but
that's why
coming-
it's still
It's
on.
coming for 2025.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we know that that money has been spent, basically, right?
More or less, yes.
More or
Yeah.
less.
But that's taken into account already in the worksheet. Still gonna.
Okay, so go down on
Go down a little bit.
2025. So if that's gonna be definitely spent in the 50 grand, and we put in 300, we're gonna have 1,000,001.
One,
Okay,
so it's already taken into.
and then in
account.
2026, we're gonna have 1,000,004. So let's just say that they ordered it in 2026. They would have enough money for a substantial deposit. That in itself would reduce, once we know what the number is, that would reduce the 1,000,008 or the 1,000,008, the 1,000,009. Because we have already made a deposit and have taken it out.
So would we put in a negative at up top? On that line of 1.9 to say we're gonna make a deposit in 27 or 28?
But we still we gotta think about what's gonna be needed in the future, but okay.
I
So
think
I'm-
it's important.
My thought process is we leave it just the way it is for now. And we see where we're at in 2025. And we see how the existing ladder truck is doing. And find out from the chief if he's come up with anything else. I mean, at one point, if we recall, we thought we were in the midst of getting a grant. And that fell through. That just didn't materialize, unfortunately. So my thoughts are keep it the way it is for now. And we talk to the fire chief and see what kind of a game plan he can come up with in terms of it. Unless somebody's got a better idea. Aaron,
Nope, I'm okay with it.
Roger,
Yeah, I say just roll with it.
and Pat, you don't want to comment, right? Pat? You prefer not to comment?
I think I would just encourage everybody to look at the proposed year of replacement, the actual age of the vehicles, and as we continually push these projects out, how old these vehicles are actually going to be.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's keep it the way it is, okay? And since the fire chief is on board with it at this point,
Could I just ask one more question? Pat may not want an answer because he doesn't want to seem to answer. It's just a curiosity thing. You know, we're saying, okay, we don't want to buy a used truck because, you know. So when we buy this new truck, how's set up? I mean, you know, so we buy it next year, 2 years later, we get it back on the CIP program, trying to for the next one. I mean, how long is it gonna last? What's the lifespan?
well, if
Fire
we
up
had a
20
brand new
years.
fire truck, okay, a ladder truck, I hope we don't see it for 20 years,
Right.
okay, on there.
And that's what this kind of says.
Against this.
This is totally unbiased. So the Fire Apparatus Manufacturers Association published a white paper, I believe in 2019, regarding regarding the standard on lifespans of vehicles versus the actual, like what departments, how long people are actually using them for. I think you'll find that in the document, majority of these vehicles are on the road for approximately 25 years.
Okay. Did you get everything in there?
Yep, I'm just double checking to make sure everything's all squared away.
All right. So what's our bottom line?
Yeah. We're at $1.09, $1.09, $1.09, $1.10, $1.09, and $1.08.
What were we last year?
$1.13, $1.11, $1, $1.04, $1.07, and $1.07. We're not too far off.
So some of those numbers you just said, actually in these years here.
Yeah.
So some of them seem less, some of them seem more, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
How much did we say that what did you say that the assessed value of the town was? 2 billion,
It's right here, 2,241,857,324.
that says 9/24/24.
Correct.
So that's what's gone into the state.
Yep, I caught Rob on the day that he was submitting his numbers, so that's the number.
Okay. Well. Compared to last year, it's not too bad, just we've pushed out a few things, you know. Based on the best information that we have with the department heads.
Yep, and I do just want to note, I did speak with Tim Broderick over at the school department.
Yep,
And when he came in, he said that he was gonna talk to the school board about keeping the warrant articles, you know, to a minimum. And they did take his recommendation. And so they're only putting away just the one for the boiler room.
okay,
So just so that
Great.
you're aware of that.
okay, cool. Anybody got any questions? Karen?
Nope.
Roger?
Nope.
Pat? Okay. So we're gonna go with this 1,996 on, I'm sorry, $1.96, $1.09 plus $1.91, $1.91, $1.09. I mean, I'm sorry, $1.10, $1.96 and $1.82 for the next 5 years. So be it. Cool. That'll be it.
All right.
That'll be it. Okay.
So
Jessica?
if you, as the committee are comfortable with this plan, then you should make a motion that you recommend the 2025 to 2030 CIP plan to the planning board.
Can I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept this plan to present to the planning board.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So be it. Not the greatest, but it's the best we can come up with at this point. But we're hopefully giving the citizens the best possible information in terms of the tax impact. Knowing full well that it's always going to be about the highway department and the fire department in terms of their needs and balancing that with the tax rate. Okay, next. Next order of business. You gotta go, Raj? Huh? You wanna go to the boys' room? Okay, go ahead. Okay, just that October 15th, okay, we're gonna meet with the planning board. Everyone is welcome. I'll be there and I'll be making the presentation and love to have everybody there with me. And the tentative meeting with the planning, the public hearing. What was that? Is that with the board? The Board of
So
Selectmen?
if you're referring, are you referring to B? Yeah, B is when, so at the October 15th planning board meeting, the planning board is normally they will schedule the public hearing for the November 19th meeting. That's what that's saying.
Okay,
And a tentative snow date.
so we have to be there for the October 15th, right?
Yep, and then you would be there for the November 19th meeting for the public hearing.
Okay, and,
And potentially, we always schedule a snow date.
okay, all right, and that's the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's with the planning board also?
Correct.
Okay, and that's on November 19th or November 27th?
The- Schedule.
Okay, and then the committee, and then we will present to the Board of Selectmen in sometime in November or December.
Yep, and budget committee.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Yes,
question.
Karen?
Do the meetings always start at 6? Is that typical?
Seems pretty universal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go, is there any public input? Hearing none. I would entertain an adjournment. Oh, I'm sorry, public input.
I was just,
There you go.
Dick Shea, I appreciate the effort that's been put in here as a selectman who has to ultimately talk the voters into going along with what we want to spend. I feel more comfortable seeing the amount of consideration that's been given. I'm glad that we were able to reduce some things without having to do it under duress. I particularly like the suggestions about cleaning up the titles on a couple of the capital reserve funds so that the public doesn't misinterpret what the money's for. And just generally, I think this overall has been a great effort that'll benefit the town. I thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Uh,
now I will entertain.
I would just like to thank everybody also for their time. Does take a fair amount of dedication to open these sheets up in your time off and try to wrap your head around everything that's inside of here. And especially for Jessica, it's a rough time of year for everybody at the town hall and budget season and everything else. And this is no small feat, making sure all of this comes together. So thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna put in a plug to Pat. So the last two meetings, if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be taking place. So I graciously appreciate your knowledge in technology because I don't have very much of it. Thank you.
Happy to help.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Jessica, for all your work, hard work. I will now entertain an adjournment. Please, if I could get a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye. Thank you. Wonderful.